Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Habayim. We are continuing on Masechet Succah, and we are by the Mishnah on the bottom of Lametit, Amud Aleph, 10 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zchut Refuah Shelema for Michael ben Nahid, Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, Esther Bracha bat Chaya, Avraham ben Tajgol, בתוך שאר כל חולי ישראל, לשרפה של מה בעזרת השם, אמן. This week's learning of the community has been graciously dedicated by the Shea family, Dayan family, and Cohen family. This should be an ultimate zchut for all of their mishpachot, be'ezrat Hashem, amen. We are now going to discuss some of the technicalities of using the Arba Minim that grew on Shnat HaShemitah, Shvit. We know all that Shvit has specific laws and halachot associated with it. You cannot work the land on Shvit. You can't plow and plant and take care. You can lock your doors to people. You cannot be shomer perot Shvit. If you have a land, you have to kind of like leave it as hefker, open to people to use and to openly be publicly used. You cannot guard your garden, so to speak, right? And also, when you sell the perot shvi, you can't do business with them, a mass production type of business. And even when you sell an individual item, the kedusha of perot shvi'it is tofes to that which you have sold. Now, perot shvi'it have other restrictions. That's why it makes it nafkamina, it makes a difference where you use the money after you sell an item from shvi'it. Because, for example, you have shat habiur. You can use the perot shvi'it that you have. You could also pick them and take them in the house and store them at home, what you think you're going to be using. But once in the field, no longer they exist in a natural way. They've been finished from the field, from the outside. Then you have to also get rid of all of the things that you have in your pantry. You can no longer use them after Shat HaBi'ur. Now, this obviously makes it harder when you have preserved the things that you have at home. So we spoke about the wine that is made from perot shvit. If you have wine that comes from Eretz Yisrael that was made in Shnat HaShemitah, and now 5-10 years later, you have this wine sitting up there, and you're thinking to yourself, this is a 2015 wine. It's awesome. Right? It's not so awesome because even though that you feel that you have an aged wine, it's not necessarily going to be mutar because it's after Shat HaBiur. It's after the time that you could use it. Now you have to basically trash it, right? So the money, if I sold something in Shvit and now I have the money, that money is tofes kedushat Shvit, and therefore I have to spend the money within Shat HaBiur as well. Just like the fruits I would have to use within Shat HaBiur. Now, people who are Talmidei Chachamim, people who are careful in the laws of Shvit, they would, obviously, naturally, they would do these things, right? They would know, okay, I got this $10 from a Perot Shvit, so I'm going to make sure to use this right away on the expenses that I have, and it's not going to be around after Shat HaBiur. But if you have an amaretz, if you have an ignorant person that doesn't know or is not careful, doesn't care about the halachot of Shvit, then when you do business with them, you have to be careful because now you are responsible to make sure they don't do an isur. And therefore, if you provide money for them that is going to be kadosh b'kedushat Shvit, and now they're going to not be careful in that money that has kedushat Shvit, who caused them to transgress the kedusha of Shvit? You. So that is kind of like a lifnei v'lo titen michshol. You are putting a stumbling block in front of them. It's a problem. It's a problem, right? So that prompts our Mishnah over here. Halokeach lulav mechavero b'shvit. If you are buying lulav from your friend, which is kind of like a misnomer, it's not necessarily, Rashi says it's not your chavero, it's really an amaretz. We're talking about an ignorant person that is not necessarily going to be careful in the halachot of shvit. So when you're buying this from them, you don't know exactly how they're going to be dealing with this money that you give them. And you're buying lulav from them. Rashi says not necessarily lulav, but you're buying lulav and hadas and arava. Why? Because, as we'll see in just a moment, you are kind of like asking them, expecting them to give you the etrog for free. Because the Mishnah is going to differentiate, and we'll see why in the course of the unfolding Gemara. But we'll see that the Gemara differentiates between the etrog and the other three meaning. For whatever reason it is, and we're going to see the reason, the lulav, hadas, and arava don't have the problem of shvi'it when you're buying this item, and etrog does. So the etrog is a problem. Lulav, hadas, and arava are not a problem. You can pay, with calm mind for the three meaning, but for etrog you can't. So what are you going to do? You're going to expect them to give you the etrog for free. So says Rashi, you could expect that more if you're giving nice amount of business to this person. So you're paying, a good money for the lulav, good money for etrog, and for hadas and arava rather. So then kind of like he'll throw in the etrog. So that's what the Mishnah says. Halokeach lulav mechavero. So you're taking the other three meaning from your friend Amaretz b'shvi'it in Shnat HaShemitah, notelo etrog b'matana. The fellow should give you the etrog b'matana. Why? Because now you paid zero money for the etrog. You could go to sleep knowing that you have not made any stumbling blocks for anyone, because you don't have to be worried what he's going to do with the money of Shvi'it, which has Kedushat Shvi'it. The moment he gives you the etrog, you give him the money, the Kedushat Shvi'it transfers on the money, and now he is going home with your money that has Kedushat Shvi'it, and you caused that, and now he's going to wait until, put it in his, in his pillow, stuff it in his pillow, and use it after Shat HaBiur and Vavila, right? You don't have to be worried because you paid $0 for the etrog. Fine. Lefi she'en rashai lelokcho b'shvit, because you're not allowed to buy it from Amaretz on Shvit, right? Why? Because of what we mentioned. You're putting a stumbling block, and it's going to be a problem. Now, obviously, not every Amaretz is going to be willingly giving you an etrog, especially if it's a nice one, for free. So what do you do when the Amaretz is not going to be willing? Let's be in a perfect, Mishnah is in the perfect world. Yes, give it for free. But sometimes the perfect world is less than perfect, so it's not going to work. And the guy says, oh, no way I'm going to give this here. It's just a $300 etrog, I could get $300 for it. Why would I give it to you for free? Right? So says the Gemara, Lo ratza litel lo b'matana. If he doesn't want to give it to you b'matana, what do you do then? So it says, the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, mavliya ledme etrog belulav. You are going to be mavliya. You're going to give the money for etrog included in the other three meaning. In other words, you're going to look at the lulav, a dairy lulav, you say, wow, what a nice lulav. This is a lulav that I would pay $200 for. Wink, wink, right? Amazing. Oh, look at this hadassim, meshulash. It comes with a pillow and a blanket in a box, right? Shiur chazon ish, meshulash. This is something I want to pay $100 for, right? And by the time you're done with the arava, you've paid already the money for them and the $300 for etrog, and you're like, can I have this etrog, please? And the guy, if he's smart business, says, yes, come back next year, please, right? So that's how you're going to do it. You're mavliya the money. Now, there's a lot to be spoken about mavliya, because according to many, havla'ah has to be in a way that's not really clear. Like, if it's mamash, like you're paying something that would be worth $5 and now you're paying $500 for it, that's not havla anymore. That's harama, right? But again, if you're doing all the three other species, hopefully by the time you're done with praising them enough, you've done a proper havla and you could get the etrog for free. So says the Gemara. Why can't you just give him money? Well, we mentioned yesterday that the Isur Schora, B'demei Shvi'it, doing business with fruits of Shvi'it is a different type of Isur, right? Here, selling one item is not Isur Schora. You could sell one item. You have to be mindful that when you sell one item, it's going to be obviously transferring to Shat Shvi'it. You have to deal with it appropriately, accordingly, and so on and so forth. But it's mutter. So Gemara says, if it's mutter to sell one item, it's not included in the category of quote-unquote schora beperot shvi'it, doing business with perot shvi'it, so just sell it to him and give him the money. What's the problem of buying one etrog? Says the Gemara, no, you can't do that. It's a different problem. Not the issue of doing schora b'shvi'it with perot shvi'it, but you can't give money for fruits of Shvi'it Amharitz, because again, as we explained, once the transaction happens, the Kedusha transfers. And now the Kedusha of Perot Shvi'it is sitting on that $100 bill that you gave him. Now he has to be careful with that $100 bill, and you cannot trust the Amharitz with that. The Tanya, En Moslin, as we learned in the Braita, En moslin deme perot shvi'it la'ma'aretz yoter mimazon shalosh seudot. We don't give money for fruits of shvi'it la'ma'aretz more than a certain amount. What's the certain amount? Enough for him to have seudah for one day. Now, if he is selling this to you on Friday, so he has to prepare for what? For 3 seudot of Shabbat. That's the maximum amount of seudot that the person will have during the day. Back in the day, they didn't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They had 2 seudot a day. Shabbat had seudah shlishi, that's extra seudah. Maybe, you'll have, again, even that is 2 seudos in one day. So it's 3 seudot of seudot Shabbat. And therefore, once on Friday, it's mutar to give him the money for 3 seudot. Other days, even though that it really has to prepare only for one day, and one day is 2 seudos, when we extend the heter, you could give 3 seudot even on a Sunday. That's fine. But that's the maximum amount of money. If every seudah is what? $20. So you could give him $60. And that would be the amount, the maximum amount of money that you could give to Amaretz in a transactional thing for Perot Shvi'it. So you can't buy more than $60 worth of Perot Shvi'it at a time from Amaretz. And because, Rashi says, because an etrog usually is worth more than, etrog of mitzvah is worth more than the mazon of shalosh seudot, right? You think it's a new thing, new thing that etrog is expensive. Etrog has always been expensive, right? It's worth more than 3 seudas worth of money, and therefore you cannot buy it from him, right? Can't. So says the Gemara, what if you did already? Right? So you made a mistake. If you did give him how much money, Yomar, you should say, well, that $100 that I just gave to this guy, and it has Kedushat Shvi'it, the Kedushat Shvi'it of this $100 should be transferred, should be chal on the fruits that I have at home, and I'm going to deal with them with Kedushat Shvi'it. Right? If you own something, you could do this transfer, right, of Kedushat. You could. The problem is, it's a massive machloket in Gemara Masechet Baba Kama Daf Samechet. If you could do this with the field of your friend, you go to the field of, if it's all these fruits that has, talking about Neta Revai over there, right? Because Neta Revai also has Kedusha. What's Neta Revai? If you have, we're going to be discussing it actually, so it's Kedai to already get a head start. A tree that you plant for 3 initial years, it's going to be called Orla. So if he gives fruits, doesn't always give fruits in the first 3 years, right? But if he does give fruits, those fruits are asur b'hana'ah. Right? Not only you can't eat them, you can't feed them to your dog, you can give them as a gift to your mate, you cannot benefit from them, you just leave them on the tree, let it happen, right? By the way, parenthetically, if you are one of those gardening gurus that likes, you go to the, so sometimes we go for Birkat Ilano to someone's house, like in Amud Yomi, and the person gives you like a, what he calls a 5-minute tour, which happens to be like an hour and a half, like explaining to you every species of fruit that he has brought from Italy and from this place and from Iran and from Iraq and whatnot, and has planted in his backyard. Each one of them only has like 1 foot to grow, and he's like a collection of all the trees. So if you have, if you're one of those and you're having a gardener bringing your thing, if they are not careful with the plantation, even though that you bought a tree that's already 2 years old, but it came without any dirt, right? It's in winter, it's anyway sleeping is already half dead, so they didn't have enough dirt on their roots, and if it's not enough dirt that you can live in it, then it's considered that the clock restarted. So you could have this 5-year-old plant that you just planted, and you're so excited that this is not Orla anymore, because 5 years old, right? It's not true. It's 0 years old now, and the clock restarts. So a person has to ask a question. That's just the important parentheses for those gardening gurus. But Lamase, if you have the fruits of your own, and you are transferring the kedusha on ma'ot, on your other fruits or on money, you could do. But if you are going to your friend's garden, to your friend's field, and you want to say all of these, netarvai is the 4th year, right? After the 3rd year of Orla, the 4th year, also it's restricted, but it's not asur b'hana'ah. You can eat it as like maser sheni. It has kedusha. You have to go take it in Yerushalayim and eat it in Yerushalayim. So for all practical purposes, nowadays we don't do that. So 4 years is asur. So netarvai, right? If you want to transfer the kedusha, if it's your own field, you can. But there's a serious shita, as Mandamar in Masechet Succah that we just mentioned. You cannot do that with somebody else's assets. You can't just go to someone's field and say, oh, this the kedusha should be charan, and you can't do that. You can only transfer kedusha within your assets. You can't do it with. So here, you gave the money to this guy, you got the etrog, right? So that money that has kedushat shvit is his assets, right? According to that mandamar in Masechet Bava Kama, you cannot touch it. You cannot do anything. So what is this Gemara saying? Is this a raya for the other shita that you can? No, it's not, right? This, according to that mandamar, is a knas. We find the guy. Why did you do business with the Amaretz? Don't you know the Mishnah in Masechet Sukkah Daf Lamed? You transgressed the Mishnah in Masechet Sukkah Daf Lamed, and therefore we're going to have trouble with you. What are you going to do? You will give the same amount that you spent be'isur to give to Amaretz, that you have to sanctify within your fruits and eat it b'kedushat shvit, right? But that's what you're going to do. However you slice it. You either are actually transferring the kedusha and you're fixing the problem that you caused, and then that $100 bill no longer has kedusha, right? And therefore you fix the problem that you created, or that you can't really fix it, and therefore we fine you. And now you have to, for you to remember to never ever do this mistake ever again, we have you do this transfer of kedusha, this quasi transfer, which is not really a transfer. You're just being makdish some of your fruits with kedushat shvit, and now you have to deal with them as kedushat shvit to remember to never do this mistake again. So says the Gemara, masar, if you did give him the $100 bill, which is more than mazon shalosh seudot, Yomar, you should say, Hare ma'ot halalu, this $100 bill that I gave to this Amaretz, you mechulanin al perot sheyesh li betoch beti. They should be mechulal, they should become chulin, and the kedusha should be transferred on the fruits that I have in my pantry, in my house. Uba, and then he comes home, Ve'ochlan mikdushat shvit. Now you have to deal with those fruits as kedushat shvit. Fine. Says the Gemara, Bamed Dvarim Amurim. What are we talking about over here? Belokeach mina mufkar. All of this is in a good case. It's in a case scenario that the guy that's selling it to you happens to be an Amaretz, but he's not a Rasha. He has kept his field open to all, right? It's mufkar. He has this garden, he has this field, like an etrog field, and people are going and taking, but he also took and he's selling to you. But he hasn't done an isur of guarding his things, right? So therefore you don't know. He is like a question mark. He's not a learned person. He's a regular Amaretz. He's like an ignorant layman. But he's not a Rasha. So we don't know where his status is holding as far as Shvit. You may be giving this $100 to him, and he will be guarding it with his life to do proper Kedushat Shvit. You never know. And he may be completely not careful. It's a question mark. But if you go to a field and you see the owner of the field is selling it, and he has this like 6'5" guard, not letting anyone go into the thing, he's guard. So then he's doing it. He's definitely not careful with the halachot of Shvit, right? Because one of the major isurim is that you cannot guard your field. It has to be hefker for everybody, right? You got to put a sign that police come in, right? You can't guard the thing. So if he's guarding it, so for sure he's not careful in Hilchot Shvi'it, then you cannot buy a thing from him. It's completely asur. Aval belokeach mina meshumar, if the guy is guarding his field, his land, lokeach mina meshumar afilu b'chatzi sar asur. Even a dime worth of things you cannot buy. Forget about mazon shalosh seudot. This the Chazal allowed you to do a transaction within the money of 3 seudot of a day worth of parnasa is for a person that's a question mark, Amaretz, you don't know what he is. But if the guy is a Rasha, he's for sure not going to be careful in Kedushat Shvi'it. Even a dime of Perot Shvi'it, that dime now has Kedushat Shvi'it. He's going to go mess up with this. And we don't want that to happen. So therefore, that allowance of Chazal within the money of 3 seudot is not applicable to a person that clearly is not keeping Shvi'it, right? Says the Gemara, Mativ Rav Sheshat. Rav Sheshat asked the question, Umina mufkar gimel seudot v'tulof. If you have a field that's open, right? You see the guy has a sign, hefker, please come in, right? And he's selling it to you. You only could buy 3 seudot, not more? Or meaning, I have a question. I found the source that seems to indicate that you could do more. Says the Gemara, Hapakim ve'hachirbuzin ve'hashitim. Take a look at Rashi for all these, the identity of these items that the Gemara is mentioning over here. These are not important things. These are things that people usually do not guard. They're not important so much. They're open field. People are just, they grow where they grow. And it's not kedai to go guard them. They're just things that are open, always open, right? All these items, chalaglukot, v'hakusbar, shebeharim, v'hakarpas, shebene'arot, v'hagargir shel efer. All of these, peturim min ha'maser, they're patur from maser, v'nikachin mikol adam b'shvit. You could buy them from anybody on Shvit, anybody. That means you could buy them even from Amaretz. And these are not Meshumar, for sure. Nobody's going to guard them. Because nobody keeps them guarded, right? They're not so important. They're insignificant. So says the Gemara, Hu motiv la, v'hu mefarek la. He himself, Rav Sheshet, asked this question. He also answered this question. When we say that you could buy them, and it kind of like sounds like you could buy anything, right? $100, $1,000, you could do. That's what he said. Says no. Even this that the Gemara is saying you could buy from Amaretz, obviously is within the boundaries of what you could buy from Amaretz. All we're saying is because they are not usually guarded, You could buy them from anyone. You don't have to ask questions. Did you guard it? Did you not guard it? Where is your field? Let me see if you have a guard over there. You don't have to ask. You can just buy it from anybody because normally they're not going to be guarded. But we're not saying that you could buy more than 3 seudot worth. That is a different halacha. So therefore, it is within that boundary of amount of money that Chazal allowed that you could buy. Not more than that, right? Says the Gemara, bichte man shanu. It's amount of man, right? Says the Gemara, v'chen amar Rabba bar Chana. Rabba bar Chana said also in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, bichte man shanu. It's amount of man that you could buy. Now man, we will say, how do you know man is amount of food? We'll say, well, because man is man in the Torah. It's not that. Says the Gemara, my mashma dehai man lishna de mezoni. How do you know that man means food? Right? It's not the man of the Torah. That's a name of, because this thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent them came and nobody knew what it was. It said manu. They said, what is this? Manu just means ma, right? And they said, oh, that's a good name, Manu, right? That's what that became, got stuck. But how do you know that in Lashon HaKodesh that this means food? Lishna de mezoni, dichtiv, because the pasuk says, Vayman lahem hamelech. The full pasuk that I read to you is pasuk in Daniel. Vayman lahem hamelech tvar yom biyomo mipat bag hamelech umiyayin mishtav ulgadlam shanim shalosh umiksatam yamdu lifnei hamelech. Let me explain to you once we added. This is a kedai part of Tanakh to know. When Nebuchadnezzar brought the galut of Yerushalayim to Babel, Nebuchadnezzar was a wise king. He may have been a tremendous rasha, but the truth is the reason that he merited to be the one to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, you need a merit for that, right? Levanon ba'adir ripol. The Gemara says in Masechet Gittin that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said this to the Roman Caesar. He said, you think anybody could destroy Hashem's house, God's home? No, he's going to give it to the best of people. So what schud he had because he was a scribe in his youth, right, of Kid Baladan, and when he was sending a message to Chizkiyahu HaMelech, we learned together the story of Chizkiyahu HaMelech in Masechet Brachot Daf Yud, how miraculously 15 years was added to his life. Right, he was supposed to die. Ki met ata v'lo tichil, Yeshaya Hanavi told him, and he davened. Vayasev Chizkiyahu et panav el hakir, he davened. Right, that's the whole thing of he kicked out Yeshaya from his palace. He said, go out, Ben Amos, right? Ben Amos, kaleh nevuatcha v'seh, go out. Mekubalani mi be'abi abba. I have a tradition from David HaMelech. My great-grandfather, it was a paternal line up to David HaMelech. He says, I have a Mesorah from David HaMelech. Even if you have a sword laying on your neck, he's still daven. Right? See, he had a sword. The Navi just told him, this sickness is your last. You're going to die and you're not going to have even Olam Haba because you have marriage and children. Right? And he davened, and 15 years miraculous was added. He married actually the daughter of Yeshaya Navi, and the rest is history, right? So when this was a public nest, because the sun, the movement of the earth around the sun stopped. It was a crazy thing. This the kings of the region that heard why this happened sent letters of Masal Tov to Chizkiyahu HaMelech. So one of them was supposed to be written by the young Nebuchadnezzar, right? He was the scribe. So he was taking lunch break. He came back. He saw the other sub basically wrote something, and they kept, obviously, the copy. So in the copy, he had written, Shalom to you, Chizkiyahu, and Shalom to your God. Right? And he ran after him to change this. He said, that's not Derech Eretz. You send a letter to somebody first, you say Shalom to the God before to them. Don't be a moron, right? And he ran, and the Gemara says the Malach stopped him after 3 steps. And if he would have taken the 4th step, there would be nothing of the Jews left. By the way, you want a deep insight once we're in Shushan Purim now, right? A deeper insight in that would be, I guess it never ends, would be that Nebuchadnezzar was given a reign of 3 generations fully because of those 3 steps, right? That he took for the kavod of Hashem So it was, can you imagine, one step, you come to shul, what it means, right? Rabotai, there's something to think about, right? You do something for the kavod of Rebbe Shalom, and no one knows. Nobody knew that. Right? You do because the malach stopped him. He didn't end up doing it anyways, right? But took the 3.5 steps, right? Within the fourth one, he stopped him. So who was his children, right? He had Evil Merodach and Belshazzar. So him and his son and his grandson had a melucha. And then Belshazzar was killed. The Malchut of Bavel, the empire of Babylonia, was transferred to Madai Uparas, right? But there was a half of a fourth step also. Who was his great-great-granddaughter? Vashti. And Vashti was given the kingdom also. She was the queen, but in the middle, before she wanted to destroy all the Jews, right? And in the middle, abruptly her life was ended. That was the thing of Malach stopping him within the fourth step. But nevertheless, this is all the preface to say what happened afterwards. Nebuchadnezzar was a wise person, right? So he took this galuyot in. He said, I have all these people, and so he ruled the world. So he said, you know what? Every captivity, we have to have people from those communities growing up in the palace, right, being my advisors. So he sent to get smart, good kid prodigies from the Jewish people, from the royal families, and those became known to us as Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and Daniel, right? And Daniel became actually the right-hand man of Nebuchadnezzar and his son and his grandson. Nebuchadnezzar worshipped Daniel, like quite literally. He named his Babylon, he gave Babylonian name to all four of them. The Babylonian name of Daniel was the name of Nebuchadnezzar's Avodah Zarah, Belshazzar, right? That's how much he had chashivut for him. It's not time to go through all the things that he did to save his life and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, in the beginning, they were fed like rib and like you can imagine what food they serve in the palace of, and bishul akum and it's asur, and it's taref. So Daniel, from a young age, he said, I'm not eating this. I'm not eating this, right? And the chef said, what do you mean? It's going to be off with my head if you don't eat it and you look weak. They're going to kill me. You think you're doing yourself a favor? You're doing me a disfavor. No, you got to eat this, right? And they would not budge. He said, you know what? Let's try it. You give us beans for 1 week and see if we don't look as good, then we'll listen to you, right? That's the upmach. That's the deal they made. And the pasuk says after 1 week they looked even better than all the other youngsters that were eating all this meat and ribs. This is a vegetarian minatorah minayin. This is very this, right? So actually, many of the Mefarshim Rishonim say this was a nest, but Ibn Ezra says, listen to this. I know we are out of time, but this is so kedai to say. Ibn Ezra says this was no nest. Man, a person is happy with their life. When you're happy, you know what geschmack they had every time they ate this kosher food in the palace of this Rasha Arel? They caved. Like, there was, geschmack, right? They're like, we're getting away with kosher food in this situation after the Khurban. They had such pleasure from this. And when you have pleasure from your life, you'll look amazing. Right? The food, it was no nest, it was derech hateva, because when you are of geschmack from your life and you love what you're doing, that would be the healthiest thing ever. And B'ezras Hashem will continue this in this.